Hello. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about one of my favorite commanders. So in November, I was really hyped for the Avatar set, and I really liked the Avatar Aang one because I like the fact that he can use all the bending abilities, and if he does all four in one turn, he gets a really busted ability. And I think that's really fun. It's like he activates a superpower. But but throughout the past 5 months, I've been or 6 months, like actually, I've learned a few things from some of my friends, plus having some of my own ideas, and and I thought I'd share some with you guys. So in this deck, my main goal, I don't have to transform him and make him like really broken. That's not the main priority. The main priority is to just get him out on the field and start being a card draw engine as soon as he possibly can. So with that being said, I want to start by going over like how my mana is looking and how I'm supposed to ramp. So I have a few creatures and I have a few cards that will allow me to ramp. So so I have this guy, Hybrid's Druid, which man, if I have a lot of allies, he can add any amount of mana. Plus, he himself is a mana dork, because he counts himself as an ally. Um, let me see. The Great Divide Guide is very similar. Each land, and he's really good because even if you don't have the right color lands, then it's okay because he can make them any color. That's a pretty good ability. As far as like ramp cards go, I have the classic Three Visits, Nature's Lore, Farseek. All three of them can allow you to get any of the lands that you want, and you can summon them. Also, um, Earthbend Extension does the same thing. When you bring it out, you can search your library for a basic land card. Doesn't matter what it is, you just put it in field tapped, wherever it works. And then once you create more lands, and then Earthbend Extension gets its own ability. As far as the land goes, Ally Encampment's good because you can essentially return cards that could potentially be killed. Um, the main thing is you want the triomes because these cards fetch the triomes, and the triomes, depending on what you have in your hand, can essentially like make the fact that you're a 4 mana creature kind of irrelevant. So you have that, and then you also have like some of the classic lands like Taiga, Tundra, just some classic dual lands. They're pretty strong. Um, Next up, I want to go over how he airbends. So with the airbend cards I have, airbending is not quite the strongest, but there's some neat janky things you can do. So for instance, Aang Swift Savior is probably your best airbender because airbending essentially acts as a removal and a protection with the added effect of, oh well, your opponent can bring this card back, but they have to pay 2 mana, but at least it stops it for that turn and gives you information. It also saves your creature from dying, but then you have to pay 2 the next turn. Now, what you can do with airbending is you can use it with a couple of creatures. Let's go over the really easy one first. Avian Interrupter. So if let's say you have you have something that can airbend creatures, you want to save it. You want to use Avian Interrupter first because it will interrupt a spell. You will exile it, and then on your turn, you can bring out Aang Swift Savior or whatever airbending thing you have. Bonus points if you have Avatar's Wrath, which will then airbend everything. So basically, while these would normally cost 2 mana, um, for everything that's airbent, it actually costs 4 mana, which basically will put a lot of things out of commission. At least a lot of like mana dorks, a lot of like things that normally cost 1 mana, because people aren't going to want to pay 4 mana for their small weak creatures. So this is pretty good. Um, And also, if you have something with graveyard abilities, those also cost more. So, for instance, if you're fighting Sephiroth and Sephiroth has a Forsaken Miner out and he commits a crime, that Forsaken Miner is going to cost 3 mana instead of the usual 1. Like, that's pretty good. And then there's also an infinite creature generator you can do. If you have Appa out and you either have Aang transformed or you have Dark Arlok out in the field, then you use 2 different airbenders. It could be Aang's Swift Savior. But one of them has to be Appa Steadfast Guardian. You have the Airbender. Oh, you have Appa come out first, airbend everything. That's a creature that can come back. So outside of tokens, then you have Aang come out. Like, so for instance, Aang or whatever. You bring out everything else except for your Airbender, and then you airbend Appa, and then you keep on doing the same thing back and forth. And then every time Appa's out, and then you summon your other guys before summoning your Airbender, Apple will create 1-1 ally creatures for you. So you can generally create like 1,000 hypothetically. When you're playing Commander, that's basically what you say once you explain how the loop works. That's pretty strong. Then what else can you do with it? I think that's it for airbending. Probably the other best one is Legend of Yingchen because she can exile something and then you can passively airbend when you cast a second creature. And she's a flyer, so like that's pretty strong too. Next up, we're gonna go over. Let's see. I'm gonna look over. I'm gonna see what we can talk about next. Let's talk about earthbending because earthbending is actually the strongest bending you have. And the reason why is because most of the bending outside of Badger Milk Club that I have in this deck is very passive. So Badger Milk Club is also actually a great mana source. I didn't mention that earlier, but if you play Standard, you probably already know that. But mainly you want the Toffs. So you have Toph Earthbending Master, Toph Hard-Headed Teacher, and Toph the First Metal Bender. When you have one of these out, you will earthbend at least one time. You will at least earthbend one time per turn, if not more. Especially with Top Hearted Teacher, because if you have any spells, then you earthbend. And this actually is a great combo with Katara the Fearless, because Katara says if a triggered ally triggers, then it triggers an additional time, and this works with both Aang, with both Aang's firebending as well as any of Toph's abilities, because Toph is an ally in all 3. So you will earthbend 1, for instance, when you play a spell. Toph will see it and will earthbend 1. Then Katara will see it and say, no, you actually earthbend 1 twice in a row. And then for both of those times, Aang will see both of those earthbending, and then Katara will see Aang firebend, or she will see Aang's ability activate, and his ability will activate twice. So you'll draw 2 cards for the first earthbending, and you'll draw 2 cards for the second one. So overall, if you have Toph and Katara out, you will draw 4 cards each time you earthbend, which is extremely, extremely strong. 4 cards. So that's earthbending. And then in addition, you have some really powerful lands you can earthbend. The main one being the 2 main ones I would say to earthbend are Secret Tunnel, which is a land that can't be blocked. So when you earthbend it, it will keep attacking, and as long as you keep earthbending it, it will get stronger and stronger. And then if you have the Legend of Kyoshi turnaround, then and you have her, or even with the second turn too, you earthbound X for X number of cards in your hand. With all the cards in your hand, as well as a Secret Tunnel being unblockable, hypothetically you could earthbend 7 and then earthbend 7 Secret Tunnel, and then it will deal massive damage. That's very, very strong. So that's the earthbending abilities. Earthbending, like I said, earthbending is the strongest. You also have Haru, who also, whenever an ally enters, you earthbend one. And again, Katara, if you have Katara the Fearless out, then you draw 4 cards, but if not, you just draw 1. We're going to talk about waterbending next. So waterbending, I think, is the weakest in my deck, because earthbending is just so much more important for the card draw. But there are a few that waterbend, but they waterbend. It's like the waterbending is like an extra benefit. This waterbending in itself isn't really that good, but for the abilities you do are very strong. So probably the best waterbender, or the best waterbend ability, is probably the waterbender extension, because you can make something unblockable when you waterbend. And then, so if you have to go into combat, you waterbend 4. So if you attack with, if Aang is out and he attacks and he has firebending too, and I'll explain firebending in a bit, but you can have her waterbend as Aang firebends, and then it can't, and then you make Aang unblockable, which is like 4 damage to your opponent right in their face, which is very strong. That's probably the best for just using waterbending, just to kind of for the sake of it. The other one actually is, which is very strong, is Katara Water Tribe's Hope. So with her waterbending, what you can do is on your opponent's end step, let's say you have 5 creatures out, right? And you have 3 mana remaining. So you can waterbend 1, waterbend X, you waterbend 1, you waterbend one of your creatures, and you just say, I'm waterbending 1. Aang will see it and draw a card. And then you waterbend 1 again. You tap a second creature, then the third, then the fourth, then the fifth. And then you tap the mana, 6, 7, 8. You draw cards. This is probably your best card draw ability. You do everything by the end of your opponent's turn, as long as you didn't block. As long as but you have to use it after the attack phase. If you use it during the phase and you make everyone a 1-1, then you're kind of screwing yourself over. So you have to do it at the end of everyone's turn. Though if you have a lot of creatures and stuff and you threaten to block, or and someone's attacking, if you waterbend everything, like waterbend like the 7 creatures as you block, then everything will be like 7-7, which is also really strong. So it's like either way, your opponent is gonna be, you're gonna have a very good board state on your next turn. So that's the main way you use waterbending. And otherwise, like, you have Spirit Water Revival, but like it's like Warbin, yeah, it's part of it, but mainly you're just taking cards already in your grave and you're bringing them in, you're shuffling them in your deck, and you're drawing, and you have a big ass hand, which is great for this deck. So lastly, I want to talk about firebending. So firebending so when you firebend, you just generate 2 mana during your battle phase. And that's all good as long as you have a lot of instance and flash creatures. So instance, I have all of these, though most of them are defensive spells. So like Arcane Denial, Everything Lesson, Path to Exile. You don't really use these on your turn. That's not what you're going to do. You're not going to use firebending for that. You're just using firebending mainly to get the card draw in that scenario. However, with creatures with flash, such as Washi Tong, so him, when you can flash him in as you are attacking with Aang, you bring him out, you get more card draw depending on how much how much mana you use. And I have an artifact called Vedalken Ori, which makes all non-land cards have flash. So you can bring out anything basically everything during your battle phase will cost 2 mana less, which is very strong. There's another card that also does this, High Fate Trickster. So in case you don't have Valdegan Ori out, you have High Fate Trickster, which does the same thing. That both very good with firebending. Probably your best source of firebending, like everything else, you have the Firebender extension. So basically, this is very easy to get like a full thing of. And then you can start copying abilities to each other. So if you copy Katara the Fearless out, you can basically exponentially increase the amount of fire bending you can do, or the amount of triggers Aang will have. So that is very strong. And then let me just see quick. Yeah. This is based on an ability trigger. It's very good for the fire bending. And Katara, because of the multiple triggers. The other really strong one is the Legend of Roku, which if you start, once you exile him, he can basically firebend 4, and then that basically each time a creature with firebending, even if it's firebending 0 triggers, so like for example Zuko, I don't have him in this deck, but Aang will draw a card, so that's just a second thing you can firebend, and draw more cards, and then it adds to them the mana. And then this guy's firebend ability is really strong because essentially it says 8 to create a red dragon, but it's actually 4 because of the firebending. And if you somehow have that dragon survive, then each time you attack with Avatar Roku and the dragon, then you just get a free dragon. So he just exponentially gets stronger each turn, which is very strong. And then, like I said, with the flash abilities, you can essentially cast things for free at that point if you have the proper board state. It's very strong. And then, so that's all the bending. And if you happen to get them all, he transforms. But just in case, there's also Moon Mist, which will transform Aang for free. So if you have a lot of cards in your hand, you can just play them all out there. Outside of your counter spells and whatnot. And basically that is very strong. And then once you're done casting all your spells and you want more card draw, then Aang can just transform back and be even stronger. But I also have some nasty. So you've been hearing the word card draw a lot. And if you are lucky enough to get Psychosis Crawler out on the field while you are doing all your bending shenanigans, the opponent will lose life very quickly because of Psychosis Crawler. And then if you have this plus Spirit Water Revival, then you basically will make this guy very strong too. Especially if you like buff him a bit with like Demonic Ruckus or Glider Staff, you make him a flyer, then he can be very strong. And that's pretty much it with this deck. It's very strong. Its front ability is super strong, and it's great. It's great consistency wise. As soon as you get your mana out, if you have Smothering Tide, you can keep generating mana, and then you will be very strong because you will have all these cards to draw. And that's basically all the stuff I learned. If you want to check this deck out, you can look in the description and click on the link to it. And then you can check out this deck for yourself. And maybe if you have any other ideas, please suggest them in the comment section, and I am always willing to listen. All right, thank you. Bye.